Okay, in this video we're going to be checking out the Dark Knight Nirvana radio from UndergroundFPV. Now I've had this for a little while and I was going to put a video out, but as luck would have it, I ended up getting something, like I said, defective unit. There was something wrong with the main board in this, and all of these review units were sent out without any firmware on them to all the reviewers, and they would have to download some firmware from a Google Drive somewhere and then flash it to the radio using OpenTX Companion, and I was unsuccessful in getting mine to boot up properly. So they're actually going to send me another one, but they said it was okay to go ahead and make a video just talking about the hardware and my impressions about that. No I have no idea what the software is like because I haven't been able to get it to run at all. I know that some of the other reviewers have been able to get it up and running successfully. So you're probably going to see some videos on how OpenTX runs on this touchscreen before you see it on my channel. I'll probably not be getting the fixed radio probably for another week or so, I guess. I'm just imagining. I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be heading my way. Now, this radio has already been on a number of review channels already, so you probably have an idea what this radio is about, but I'm just going to give you my impressions on the hardware and what I first thought about when I got it. And I was pretty impressed actually. It's hard to convey what the radio feels like in the hand and the way it looks. I mean, there's only so much the camera can convey. Obviously, in pictures, it does kind of look toyish or kind of a like an Xbox controller. But I can tell you that it's not does not feel like an Xbox controller. It's quite a bit heavier actually. It weighs pretty close to what the QX7 weighs with the batteries inside it, and it's pretty hefty. It's not a light radio. If you're looking for a light radio like the X-Lite, this is not it. The gimbals are really smooth, and these are actually Hall sensor gimbals. They're full digital gimbals all the way through, digital all the way to the radio itself. The Hall sensor gimbals like that you get for the upgrades for the Tyrannus X9D, those are digital on the gimbal itself, but then there's a digital analog conversion that goes before the signal goes to the radio. I don't think a lot of people know that. So that does make a little bit of difference in terms of jitter and in terms of accuracy. And these are full digital all the way through. And all of the switches and then this extra hardware here that's been, I guess, coated with this kind of burnt metallic finish here. They're calling it burnt titanium, and all these pieces, I think most of these are metal. Like this lanyard hook is metal. All of these switch, I guess, covers here are also metal. And I don't know if you've seen other radios, but the process is such that the colors that come out on here are going to be unique to every radio because they can't match the colors exactly on every single radio. So you can see like this one here, this dial here is kind of purplish and green, but then over here you can see it's more green over here. So that just means that not any one radio is going to be identical to another one. They're all going to be kind of unique in their own way. And you can see kind of like this button doesn't quite match that one. It's more purple here, more green in this one, and the angle of the reflection also changes the color as well. So it really gives it a unique look, kind of, and it's kind of an expensive process as well. So there's a little attention to detail there, and kind of making the radio kind of unique and special. Now it's really hard to describe how this feels in the hands. They have this; it's very thin, and the way I'm holding it is I'm putting my fingers in like this on the side. This little piece here sort of stabilizes things, and you could either do like this or like this. This feels most comfortable for me, and they designed this radio so it could be used for both thumbers and pinchers. Now, I'm not a pincher. I couldn't even tell you how I would use this as a pincher, but they did design this radio with pinchers in mind. But as a thumber, I slot my fingers in like this on both sides, and yeah, this feels very comfortable to me. So I like the fact that this piece is there. Also, this if you don't like this piece, I believe it's removable, and also there's going to be custom pieces available on Thingiverse that you can print out if you want to have a different shape or size or location. You want to move that grip a little bit somewhere around, you can customize that to your own needs. Now here on the underside here, they've got these switches pointing on the inside, which is kind of different. These are just this one here is just a momentary switch, and they have a 3-position switch here. I'm not sure if I'll be using these so much, and the same two are also on the other side. You got these This is a 2-position switch here and here. You've got a 3-position switch over here, and this is another momentary switch, and then you have your dials, and then your trims. And I can just tell you that this whole radio just feels super premium. I mean, it kind of look in the pictures, it did look kind of toyish, but it doesn't. It just feels solid. And one of the things that they mentioned was that the plastic that they used is a little bit thicker than what they would normally use in something of this size transmitter. So I think it's like about 0.5 millimeter more. And that really makes a big difference. It does add a little bit of weight, but it's very stiff in the hands. And you can't twist it. It just feels really solid in the construction. Now this does run off of two 18650 lithium ion batteries, and then they just go into the grips here. This little cap screws off like so. And you can actually run this radio off with just one battery if you want. So you can hot swap them if you find the battery charges low. I recommend these Samsung ones. These are pink or purple, 3000 milliamp hours, and they have a discharge of 30 amps, I believe, something like that. They fit in here perfectly. And unlike the X-Lite, this radio does charge the batteries via the USB port, whereas the X-Lite does not do that. So let me just show you where the USB port is. It's over here in the top of the radio, right here, micro USB, of course. You got also a trainer port here, and they do include cables from both of these. I'll show you those here in a second, the accessories that come with this. So yeah, with the micro USB, you can actually hook up to your computer for using it as a simulator, and also charging the batteries. Okay, so taking a look at the underside, you have these rubber pads here for laying your transmitter on a table, and it does keep it from sliding around. So another nice touch there. There's one of the antennas is here. It comes out like so. You can rotate it out, and then you get the antenna pointing out like this. That's the first antenna. The other antenna is in the grip here over here in this part. It's a PCB antenna, and it's directional. So if you're not flying too far away, you can probably just get away just using this and not actually using the extended antenna. And also, by the way, this does run the internal RF, and this is the FlySky protocol, and just come with 2 receivers. I'll show you that here in a minute. But if you don't like FlySky for whatever reason, don't have any FlySky receivers, you want to fly FreeSky, Spectrum, Crossfire, whatever you want, you can attach a couple of adapters here, and they look like this, and you just screw them on like here, and screws are included. And this other piece here has these pins that socket right in here, and then that just screws into the other side, and then these pins will then go into your GR module. So if you have a Crossfire or R9M or multi-protocol module, because this runs OpenTX, you can just stick that in there and then use that as your RF instead of the internal FlySky transmitter. So I'll show you this attached along with what a module looks like here in a second. But let me first show you what comes with the radio. Okay, so this is one of the receivers that you get, and comes with actually one spare antenna. This is a diversity receiver, and it comes with a connector here. This is the FSX8B receiver. So it kind of looks like the XB receiver from before. This is a sort of updated version. You also get this micro receiver here, just a single antenna, and this runs S-Bus or I-Bus, and this one is called the what is this? This one's called the FSIA8X receiver, so pretty tiny receiver. It's going to be good for your probably 2 to 3 inch microclass drones. Include a couple of the cables here, the one for the trainer port, and plenty of length for that, and also one for the USB port, and it's a 1.5 meter USB cable, so plenty of length for that to connect to your computer for simulators. And you get a little small quick start guide here. It's in English and in Chinese, and it does outline, let's see, it has a diagram here for all of the all the parts here, what the radio are, the switches and dials, and installing the battery, binding with the receiver. Pretty basic stuff here. And yeah, let me go ahead and I'll install the RF module now. So installing the RF module adapter is really easy. And of course, they include the 4 screws that you need. Okay, so once you screw in these 4 screws, this is the adapter that allows you to plug in GR modules. And I'll go ahead and grab my Crossfire micro module and we'll stick it in here. I'll show you that fits just fine. Okay, so here's the Crossfire micro module, and you just make sure you line up the pins. Okay, so you want to line up the pins like that, and then it should just snap right in like it does on the Tyrannus, and the antenna sticks at the bottom like that. You can stick on your Immortal T antenna right there, no problem. And by the way, I was laying the radio down like this on the desk with the cover on so that the gimbals were protected while you screw in the adapter. This cover is included. You can see, just pretty easy to pop off. Just slide this up. And the one in the back, slide that up as well. And this cover protects the gimbals as well as all the switches in the on the top here, so it's totally protected. You can just throw that right into your bag. And if you're kind of wondering where this came from, the idea for this is because this radio was actually developed by the same guy that developed the Turnigy Evolution, and the cover for the Evolution is the same sort of concept that the Nirvana radio has to protect the gimbals. Now, obviously here, this is like, you know, I think I'll have to say that the Evolution was ahead of its time, and the Dark Knight radio is, again, ahead of its time compared to what's still out there. It's amazing that another radio like the Evolution hasn't come out yet, and the guys that developed the Evolution had to create the Nirvana radio. And I think maybe this is finally going to change the industry, where the style of the Tyrannus is perhaps finally going to be going away, because that thing is so outdated compared to these to the Nirvana radio. Yeah, we just tell you a little history on the development of the Nirvana radio. The guy that developed the Evolution worked for, I think he worked for FlySky, I'm not 100% sure on that, and developed the Evolution for Hobby King, and at some point left Hobby King or left FlySky to develop the Nirvana radio under the UndergroundFPV brand. Now, what's interesting is I've heard stories that the gimbals on the Evolution were terrible, and I never experienced that. I always thought the gimbals were really good on the Evolution. What I learned is that sometime after the first batch of the Evolution had been sent out for reviews and had been selling for a little while, Hobby King changed the spec on this radio. I think they made the battery smaller, and they changed the gimbals from the ball bearing gimbals to something with bushings or something like that. So it was a lower quality, cheaper gimbal. And I think that's where, like, the later batches of the Evolution that people got after the reviews were out had gimbals that were not so good. And so if you guys are wondering, well, these are going to be like these FlySky gimbals, are they going to be bad like the ones on the Evolution? I would have to say no. I mean, I'm feeling the gimbals here on the new Nirvana compared to my original Evolution. I think these are even better than the ones that are on the Evolution, and I think that they're based off of one of the higher end FlySky radios. Trust me, this gimbal here is a full size gimbal. It's full range. It's not like the X-Lite, which is sort of like a reduced size gimbal. This is a full size gimbal, and you can extend this up, the stick further up as well. It's adjustable. It feels pretty similar to the Hall sensory gimbals on the X9D Plus, or sorry, the X9D Special Edition. So, in fact, I think that I actually prefer the way this feels, because it kind of has a looser feeling, that the springs are kind of loose, and I prefer that versus the sort of tight spring tension on the FreeSky radios. So if you don't like loose springs, you may want to see if they're going to come up with some tighter springs. I heard that they may have some tighter springs available at some point later on this radio if you guys prefer the tighter springs or tighter tension. Anyways, just a little bit of history on where the ideas of the Nirvana kind of came from. They started off with this radio here, the Evolution. And if you guys have been following my channel for a while now, you know that I switched to this radio This was my daily radio for almost a year. I was flying, well, my very first radio was like a Spectrum DX6, something like that, which was a terrible radio because first of all, it was expensive, and I just got constant fail-safe problems with that one. So it just kind of drove me up the wall. So I switched to the Taranis, the FreeSky system. I got the X9D Plus radio. I flew that one for a while, maybe close to a year. And then this radio came out, the Evolution came out, and I decided to switch to this one because I just love the form factor. I liked the fact that it was very light and small and compact, and it worked for me. And I ended up switching a lot of my receivers to the FlySky receivers. But as I started reviewing more products, I kept getting products with FreeSky receivers in them, and it's just because most products out there default to the FreeSky standard and then FlySky as a secondary option. So I was forced to constantly carry both my Evolution radio with me when I was doing reviews on the field and my Taranis, which was kind of a pain in the butt. So what ended up happening after about a year of using this radio, I switched to the first generation jumper, the Jumper 1.0, the T8SG, so that I could use both of them, my quads with FlySky receivers and FreeSky receivers. So I used that one for quite a while as well, maybe 6 to 8 months, something like that. And then eventually I switched to the T8SG V2 Plus, the yellow radio. And I'm now currently using the Jumper T12. And the reason I use that radio is because I want to be able to use all the protocols. And that radio I can use FlySky, FreeSky, Spectrum. I can use the R9M long range protocol for FreeSky and also the Crossfire protocol as well, using all the modules in the back. And that's just kind of what I'm hoping, is that now I should be able to use all those modules and all those protocols with this radio, because I can then now plug in the back here my Crossfire module, my multi-protocol module to fly FreeSky and FlySky, and also the R9M module as well will fit in this module. So this can then potentially be my daily radio. The only downside that I have on this radio is that it is a bit on the heavy side, and I think I'll have to go back to using the neck lanyard to make sure that it's secure. And one of the things about this, the weight point on here is very forward heavy, so if you let this go off of your neck here, it's going to fall forward like this and probably rest against your body kind of like this. Anyway, I think I've gone on long enough in this initial impressions video. Overall, I'm impressed with the quality and the fit and finish of this. This feels super premium. I'm really hoping that the OpenTX software in here is going to be, going to work out really well. Obviously with the touchscreen and all that, it's kind of different. I know that one of the Horus, or maybe the Horus line, has a touchscreen, and I think in the other direction, I think they call that landscape. This is portrait. So I know that OpenTX does support touchscreen in some aspects, but they're working on this, and hopefully the firmware that I eventually do get and use will be very good. OpenTX is very well supported, and this will be supported. This radio will be supported in the OpenTX companion. You will eventually be able to get updates and everything directly from that at some point. Obviously not right now, at least in my experience, but I will obviously report on that when I do get this up and running in a future video. Anyway, it's going to cover for this first video. I'll have more videos covering the software and obviously more features later down the road, so stay tuned for those videos, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.